Should be recording now. So I like the use of the reactions on the meeting chat over there, guys. So not many of us are here, so I guess a lot of you guys are gonna watch this online later. So in that, uh, a couple of you in this meeting have emailed me about your group project. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually just do a quick meeting that hopefully shouldn't last very long, where I'm going to go ahead and live answer through an example some of the questions that you guys have been asking me on the emails. So let me go ahead and share. Let's see. I'm going to share the PowerPoint over here. Okay. Because while I don't want to get too much into advanced normalization today, I don't want to introduce the new stuff with the voice cod normal form and with the other normal forms that are higher than third. I do want to go ahead and look at this example that they present to us early in the slides here as a review of up to third normal form, and we will go through that one ourselves. We will go through that one ourselves to talk about review so you guys can have a better understanding for your group project that's due tomorrow night. So okay, so to answer a couple of the questions, let's talk about, let's see where, let me get down to the review here, the review slides. So if we're viewing normalization, it says up to voice cod normal form. We're only going to go up to the third normal form as part of this, okay? And so what I want to talk about is, one is, a couple of you guys emailed me. I think you kind of maybe, I don't know if there was a misunderstanding or what was going on, but so the example data, it doesn't matter where the data comes from. It doesn't matter if it's data that that we expect eventually will be input by users, or if it's data that we have there that from our system. So for example here, if we look at this example data of a property inspection report, right? So the inspection date, the time, the comments, who inspected it, and all this stuff. This is stuff that we assume that this Ann Beach or David Ford, we expect that they entered this information. They said, this is when I inspected it, this is the time, and these are my comments, right? Now, this other information up here, the property number and the property address, it already existed. Like, it already existed in the system. So it was just a matter of Ann says, okay, today I'm being assigned to go to this property and inspect it, and this is what I'm going to put in as my comments. Okay, or this is what she puts in as her comments when she goes, right? So this data, we could say, well, that already existed, but this is data that Ann's going to put in real time, like when she actually goes out and inspects that property. It doesn't matter how the data got in there. It's all part of the same database. It's all in there together. And so, like, if we were taking as another example, you know, maybe the vaccine example that we did last week, where some information was already there, but some information is already there before a user accesses the system. But then some information we expect them to put it in. Does not matter how the data got there. We're making some of that information up to be able to understand how the data is going to interact with other information there. Okay, if that's not clear, can someone make sure you ask me a question about that? Maybe in real time, maybe not. Maybe like on the meeting chat, if you want to write a better understanding. Because what I'm asking you guys to do is to make up some data. So some of it's going to be just you are coming up with your own example data, right? Now, some of it through research-based techniques, you're going to come up with properties that you think really would be used in some type of system, like we talked about IMDb early on this semester. The vaccine example, one I often use. I don't want to go into too many details about a banking example because one of the groups did choose to do a banking project. And so I don't want to get into too much details for them. I don't want to do their project for them. But the idea is that some data, you might say, okay, we can use real examples from some of our research, but some data is just going to be, we're going to make that stuff up. So you might have, well, you know, I know that a bank has an account number, so I'm going to have an account number column, but then a bank would also have information like a transaction amount, like if somebody withdraws money from their account or deposits money into their account or pays a bill, there's an amount associated with that. And so those things, you just kind of make that stuff up. Maybe you use example data from a bill that you actually paid, and you can put that out there, could put that in that column for that transaction. Okay, I hope that kind of clears some of that stuff up so that you can understand what an expectation would be there. Okay. So if we take this what is it? This example form, right? And we look at it as how we're going to put that into a table, all right? 1 second. Okay. So we are looking at this this form, this property inspection report, and we want to take this and we want to put it into a table format, right? So here, if we look at this table, how it might come in first, we might say, okay, well, these are the inspections that are associated with this property number, and these are the inspections that are associated with this property number. And so remember from our previous discussion that this is not first normal form, right? This is, we would call this unnormalized. And the reason why is because it's not every cell, every row column combination has a single value, right? Some of them have more than one. Okay. And so what we want to do is we want to take this and we want to put it into a first normal format. Now, if you might notice that we kind of switched up some of the columns here too, going from unnormalized to normalized. And the reason for that we're going to see on the next slide is what this example, what they have identified as the primary key. They've decided to go ahead and put that primary key, those primary key columns over here all the way to the left. Because if you remember, the way that we understand a primary key is based on the whole functional dependencies, right? And so the primary key is where some column or set of columns that is a determinant in the functional dependency for all other columns in our table, right? And so what we're going to say is that these two columns together are the determinant for all of the other columns in our table. And the way that gets represented in a functional dependency format, if you remember, is the whole arrow format. Let's see if I can, do they have an example in this set of slides? Right, like this, right? So this is a functional dependency, right? And we'll talk more about these slides in next lecture. But for now, I just want you to know that this is the format here. So basically, all of my primary key columns are over here on the left side, and all of my other columns are over here on the right side. And so to make that more easy to understand, what they've done is they reformatted these two columns to be on the left side of the table and all the other columns to be on the right side of the table. Okay, so how do we know that property number alone could not be a primary key? Well, that's easy, because if you have if you have anything that's repeating, it can't be a primary key. Anything that would be like kind of a group of group of rows here, like PG4 with the property address, it cannot be the primary key, because multiple rows over here are dependent on this value, right? So not dependent on this value. Multiple rows go with this value here, right? And so since more than one row has this value, cannot be the primary key. The primary key must be something that is unique, okay? So date cannot be on its own a primary key. Reason, we have duplicates here, right? Two different properties could be inspected on the same day. You might say, well, what about the date and time? The date and the time together, that could be a primary key, right? Well, the problem is like, so here in our current example data, right, yeah, there is no duplicate of a date and time combination, but that doesn't mean that that's going to hold for all time, right? Because if we have a date and a time where both Anne and David are off doing something on a specific day, so like she's inspecting one property and he's inspecting some other property, same day, same time, that is a possibility, right? So we can't have a date and time, right? But the way that this is shaped out is we're assuming that for inspection purposes, a property on a certain date is the combination of property and date are going to be unique. That's our assumption. Is that a correct assumption? You can say that. You can say that for this company, they are not going to have multiple inspections of the same property on the same day, right? You can put that constraint in place. If the company decides at some point in the future, you know what, we want to be able to inspect the same property on the same day, but just at a different time, then you could just add this time column into the primary key, right? But for this particular example, we're just going to stick with property number and date being the primary key. Okay, so if we look at how that works with the whole functional dependencies here, right? If we look at how that works with the functional dependencies, then what do we get? We get this primary key determines the other columns. This partial dependency, remember what that means is you have a column that is dependent on part of the primary key, but not all of it. And then to get us to third normal form, we have a transitive dependency where you have a column that is dependent on another column. It's not part of the primary key, but it's still it's unnecessary that these be in this main table. We can break it off into its own table to make things happen. Okay, we want to see kind of how this might look graphically. Again, we're not going to talk about the Boyce Cod today, but we started with this first normal form table, the staff property inspection. The first thing is to get into second normal form. We get a property table and a property inspection table. So the property table just kind of flows all the way. We created it in the second normal form process. It stays through all the way. It's already in these other normalized forms, so we don't have to do anything else with it. But what we'll get is we get a property table and some other table. Property inspection is what we'll call it. Okay. Then to get to third normal form, we'll create the staff table and the property inspect table. Okay, so if there are no particular questions on that, then what we'll do is we will move back. I'm going to go back and check the chat and see if there's any questions, or if you guys want to unmute your mics and ask any questions. All right. I'll look over here while I unshare my screen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the other stuff. Let's see here. Let me go get this example here. I'm going to go ahead and, because I'm going to be kind of navigating quickly between multiple windows here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share my screen instead. Okay. That's not right. Let's see, shared desktop was what I need. Okay. All right. So what we've got here is we've got a blank database, all right, the property inspection database. And what we're going to do is we're going to start from here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple of things in this lecture. I'm going to introduce you to another concept, another part of the MySQL situation, right? And I have these columns and I have all this data put in there. So this was that first normal form version, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a table of how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm actually going to create a table of 9 columns. Okay, and I'll show you the reason why in just a second. So what we call it, the staff. I won't type it all out because it's going to be, actually, I think, test table. I don't need to, we can call it the test table. That's fine. Okay, so we're going to create a table. I'm going to call it test. Now, this first column, I'm going to call it the ID column. And the reason why is I want to show you how there's a specific data type in MySQL. It's called the serial. And what this is this is useful for if we wanted to have a primary key of a single column. What the serial does is it automatically creates it's an integer type that it automatically, whenever you insert a new row into the database, you don't insert a value for this column. What you do is you leave this column without a value. You insert null. You just make it null. Okay. And what happens is the system automatically, it keeps a counter going and it automatically puts in the next numerical value there. So if the last value that it put in was 10, then what's going to happen is the next time we insert a row into this column, into this table, what will happen is it will create a value for 11 in there. Okay, so it's a way to kind of, if we needed a primary key that that was always unique, but we only wanted it to be one column and we want it to be a very simple data type. An integer is a very simple data type. Then what happens is that it creates that that number for you. Okay, so it's called serial here. It's called in Microsoft Access, it's called an auto increment, and I think in Oracle, I think it's just an integer type and you have to put like a special setting on it or something like that. It's been a while since I've worked with Oracle, so and I could look it up, but okay. But for now, let's just go back to our data here. Okay, so what we need is, so we're going to get a date. We're going to get basically a date on the third column, time on the fourth column, and everything else, it looks to be a string. Okay, so we're going to be varchar 2 for everything. All right, so we're going to have a property number. Right. Varchar, and it looked like it was somewhere in the 4 or 5 character range. Okay, we're going to call this the iDate. We're going to make it a date type. Okay, we're going to call this the iTime. Make it a time. Okay, what was next? Property address, P address. And it looks like it's a varchar. It looks like it can be longer. It can be quite a bit longer than a lengthy string there. So I'll just say 100. I don't think that's a problem. Comments. One thing that you're gonna see if you work with databases long enough is a lot of times is you end up with a varchar field that if it's going to be a potential to be a very long field, then we'll go up to 255. I think that's the power of 2, the 256 thing, maybe a holdover from C programming days. But if it's going to be longer than that, if we're going to have some text that's like a lot longer than that, there are certain ways that we might deal with that. One of them that you might get some familiarity with is what's called a blob data type. It's a way to hold like a large amount of text together. It's not as versatile. It's not as useful in some ways as a varchar for data text that may change frequently, but for the purposes of keeping a large amount of text that kind of stays the same in one field in one column in the database, a blob is what you'll generally use there. For this, we'll assume comments won't be too long, so we'll just say 255 for that. Okay. Let's see, what was our next column? Staff number. We'll assume a 4-character string there. We'll make it a varchar and we'll assume it's a 4-character. Staff name. Yes, name. That's also a text. We'll make it 20 for now, although I know it could be longer. Car registration is also a text. Car registration. The car registration field is mostly important for as far as this data is concerned, as far as for the Boyce Cod issue that'll come into play. We'll talk about that next time. Okay, but for now we're just copying everything in there. So let's see. Let's just make it 10 characters. The easiest way. Okay, so now remember, you can put in your columns like this. There's no problem with putting in your columns like this. For your report, for your group project report, we need to see this, right? We need to see that you've understood that, yes, MySQL gives us this nice, fun user interface to be able to create tables with, but I want you to show me this, right? I want you to show me this, and I want you to show me that you know that that's really what's going on behind the scenes. Okay. You also need to show me some way to create a primary key. This table could have you could create it and have the primary key be part of the SQL. If you wrote the SQL statement from the SQL interface, you could also, after we save the table, okay, we could go in and do property and idate and make them the primary key. And what you should show as your part of your report is that you added this as the primary key. Okay. Okay. So now what we want to do is we have no data, right? So we need to add the data. Now, what I've done is I've taken this existing data from a spreadsheet and I've created this fun formula that creates this insert statement for me, the series of insert statements for me. Hopefully somebody in your group knows how to do this. That'd probably be the easiest way to take a spreadsheet formatted data and bring it over into a DBMS. Okay, so I'm going to take these and we'll run them over here and this should work. I messed something up. It's right there. Okay, I forgot I have a hanging missing quote. Don't do that part. Right? Okay, so that's better. So one row instead of one row. And what we're going to notice here, and what I want to pull up here is notice that here, all these IDs got created automatically, right? So 1, 2, 3. So notice that this was the order that the, what is it called? This is the order that the rows got inserted in, right? PG4 came first. Yep, sure did. And PG16 came last. Notice this was the order that I got inserted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, could we have made, instead of property number and IDate be a primary key, could we have made just the ID column the primary key? Well, of course, that's the purpose of an auto increment or a serial column. That's why we have it. But for the purposes of this example, if we go back and look at the slides here, they don't have that column. That was just one that I created. I added that to here for the purpose of letting you see how this whole serial column works. It's a useful column if you need to create ID numbers, if you need to create a primary key and you don't have a natural primary key already in your data. Okay. you probably recognize, you guys probably have noticed that a lot of your student numbers are very similar. The last number, it seems like it was auto incremented as new students were added to our university system. Most likely the university has an auto increment feature, a serial feature going on that column, on the student ID column in our database. Okay, so let's see. So now that we have this data here, okay, let's talk about how do we find our functional dependencies, right? So we know that this property number idate is our primary key, meaning the combination of this column and this column is unique across all rows, right? But what we want is we want to get this thing that's in first normal form. We want to have tables that are in second and then finally third normal form. Okay. Now, some of you have asked, you emailed me and you asked, well, our situation is different. We have a whole lot of columns because, like, okay, so this example, there's only 8 data columns. The example I did last week had 9 data columns. And you're thinking, well, our project is a lot bigger, so it's a lot harder to be able to get our data into the normalized forms, the second and third, using SQL. The problem with that is that you've asked if you could like enter information yourself, like just go and create a new table, such as, let's take for example the property table. Okay, so you're saying what I want to do is I want to add a new table. We're going to call it property. We're going to give it 2 columns. Okay, we're going to give it 2 rows. We're going to call it, what was it, property number? We'll just call it the number table. Varchar, I think we said it was a 5, and we'll call that the address column. Varchar, and I think we said like 100 characters there. Okay. Right. And what I want to do, what you're saying I want to do is I want to take this, I want to make it my primary key, right? And what I want to do is I want to go in and I just want to enter, I want to add new data, right? So I want to, there's nothing here. Let's see, I want to insert. So I want to insert value by value, PG16, right? Okay, and so the problem with doing it that way is what happens if the data is not put in exactly correctly? What if I do PG4, for example? And this is the address, and you could just say, okay, well, I'll copy and paste it here, but let's say, like, in entering it by hand, you mess something up, right? Okay, now you have this data that's not the same as the data from here, right? This is not the correct information, right? So there's a problem there. This in real world, in a real world system, what we would call this like data corruption. You know, data. Yeah, the data is not the same as what it was originally, and so what we need to do is we need to make sure that the data we get into our new table matches the data that came from our source table, right? So the only way that we can know that is if we have the computer, if we have the database system be the one to grab the data from here and bring it into our new table for us. The other thing is I want you guys to be understanding that what we're doing, one of the things we're doing is we're mimicking, right? We're mimicking or representing as if we were taking a database system in real life and we are doing data conversion, right? We are converting it into our version of the database. We are taking an existing system and we're saying, okay, I want to take this and I want to bring it over into my system. And I want to, because my system is hopefully better than the existing system that's out there. And if you ever get into a situation where what you're given is a single 1NF or unnormalized form database, then definitely I hope the system you create for that would be better than a 1NF or a UNF database. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, let me go over here into the property table. I want to delete this column, right? So I need to get the data from the original table because it's the way that I know for sure that what I'm getting matches the original thing. And it's just a matter of we created the table, we added, let's see, we added the primary key, right? Yep. Okay. So we created the table, we added the primary key, and then we are inserting data from, we're inserting into property. Instead of doing values, we're going to do a select query, right? Select distinct. Property number. Oh, and the other thing is what's really nice is, so let's say I don't remember what my column name is, property number. If I do the from part first, what is the name of my column? Oh, test. Oh, that's right, test. Okay. If I don't remember the name of the column, what I can do is I can do T dot, and then it tells me all the columns here, right? So then I can just say, I want that one, and I want that one. All right. So when I do that, now I know for a fact that the data that is now in the property table matches the data that was in the test over here. Okay. This information matches what's in the new table. Okay. Let me pull up a notepad, because one of the things I want to show you is that you don't have to do this as a sequence of clicking and sequence of writing all these queries and all this stuff. You can do this in one shot, one SQL thing. So what we're going to do is, remember, what are our steps? What are the things that we need? We need to create the new table, right? Create the new table. We need to insert the data. We need to add a foreign key constraint. And we need to drop the old columns, right? The old columns from the old table. Okay, so let's see here. What we didn't do yet was we did not add the foreign key constraint on our property, on our test table. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to alter table, right? Test. We're going to add foreign key on the property number column, references, the property table, on the number column. Right. Make sure that works. Copy that to make sure it works. All right, good. So now let's take a look at our test table, and it should have, yep, this link now, right? So it's going to tell me PG16, and PG16 is this address. Was that the correct address? Was that the no? Well, yep, there it is. Right. So we have this new foreign key added. Okay. So the reason why I wanted to do that, show you that, was that has to do with the adding of the foreign key. Right. So I'm gonna have this stuff here. Okay. We inserted into, right? So we did this. We're gonna have new table, right? Select distinct columns. from old table. We need to drop the old columns. So we need to, we'll do what? Alter table what? And draw it here. Right here. But the only columns, the only thing we're not going to drop, we're not going to drop the property number column because that's the foreign key now. We're only going to drop the property address column, right? So we're going to alter table test, drop column p address. Do you really want to drop the column? Yes, I do. Right. So now if I look at the test column now, look, no address column anymore. Okay. All right. So we're going to alter table. Let me put this in here, old table. Add foreign key. New primary key. References. New table. And its primary key column. Okay. And I'm going to show you in just a minute why I'm going through all this. Okay, so we're going to alter table, old table. We're going to drop column, new table columns minus primary key. Okay. Oh, and then the create new table, we forgot to put a query for that. Create table, new table, new columns, right? Okay. So this is the basic format. This is the basic process of what you need to show me for every table that you're doing throughout the normalization process. And I wanted to put it all in one nice little notepad document here because I'm going to show you how you can do that just with a series of SQL statements that you don't have to go through doing all this through the user interface. You can. There's no problem with that. But when you do that, you're going to have to copy and paste. You're going to have to copy and paste the queries that get created into your report for your group project. Okay, so let's do this on the new table. Okay, the next one. So we've created the property table. So what we want to do now is we want to do the staff table. Okay, so we're going to do that this way. So first thing is we need to create the new table, the new staff table, right? So we're going to create table staff, right? Okay, what are the columns that we need for the staff table? Well, we need to, let's see, staff number and staff name. So we'll do just like we did with the previous one. We'll do the number column. What data type is it? It's a varchar 4, right? So not varchar 4, not null, right? Because it's going to be our primary key. And then what was our other column? The name column, the name. And we called it a varchar, what did I say, a 20? And we'll also put a not null constraint on that just to be consistent. Okay. And we want to add a primary key. We can do that in the create table statement, right? Number column. Okay, put a semicolon there. Now, we want to, after we've created the table, we want to insert our data. So our new table is the staff table. So inserting into staff. We're going to select distinct staff number s name from test. We're going to add a foreign key to the old table. We could do this, and you can either do the add the foreign key before or after. Okay, either one works fine. So add a foreign key. We're going to alter table test. Add a foreign key to, what was it called? The staff number column, right? References our new table, the staff table, on the primary key number column, right? And then finally, we're going to drop the old columns that we don't need anymore from the previous table, right? So we're going to alter test. We're going to drop column S name. Okay. Now, this should work. I may have a typo or so in here, so we'll see. All right, but you can just make this all one series of SQL statements separated by semicolons. See if this works. All right, so let's see. Let's see, did what I expected to happen work? Well, it doesn't look like any of my queries gave me any problems. So I created the table, I inserted the data, I altered the table to add a foreign key, and I altered the table to drop my columns. So let's see if what I expected to happen happened. So if we look at the staff table, no, there's my staff. Good. All right. If I look at the property table, okay, no, not the property table, the test table, my original UNF table. Okay. Well, my staff name's gone. Why? Because it's now in the staff table. That's good. And it looks like I have this foreign key that references the staff table, right? So it all did it all together, right? So I was able to take this, right, this set of SQL statements and run them all at once, rather than having to do them one thing at a time. Okay. All right. So this is how we would then create the staff table. So if we look back at the test over here, all right, so now I have this primary key here for this with a foreign key. I have this foreign key to staff number and the inspection. So now these three tables are in third normal form. Okay, so what you can do is you can take this, and if you're still having questions about how to do this with your data, with your group project data, just reference back to this. This is what you're going to do. You're going to create a new table using a create table statement. You're going to insert data into that new table from a previous table that existed, right? You're going to create this foreign key that where the old table is references back to the new table that you just created, so that we can still get back to this data, right? We still need to be able to get to the staff name. We still want to know the name of the person who performed the inspection, right? And then finally, you're going to drop those columns off of your original first normal form table or sometimes what may end up happening is you may end up creating a table in the second normal form process that becomes your source table for a third normal form table. Okay. All right. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand this is what that part of, let's see, let me pull it up here. Okay. Your group assignment here. I want to go ahead and over here. All right. So this part 3 here, this SQL for creating tables and inserting data and dropping the columns off the old table, that basically is this. However many times you have to do this to get your tables into third normal form, I need to see this set of queries for all of those, okay? So if you took a first normal form table and you created 5 new tables out of that, okay, which is not unreasonable. Many of you probably need that many tables, right? Then you should have 5 create table statements, 5 insert statements, 5 alter table, 5 other alter table statements. Okay, so that's what we need to see as part of your report. It could be, and it can be in any order. You can create all 5 tables first, then insert all data, then alter test to have a foreign key 5 times. Then you could alter your first normal form table to drop all of the columns, and you just have one final drop column statement. Okay, that'd be fine. But we need to see that you know how to take your first normal form and use SQL to do all that. Okay, again, there is no one right way to do this. You could just write all of these SQL queries and put those into a report for me. You can do it using the MySQL user interface, and the SQL that it generates, you could copy and paste into your document. Okay. One final thing we didn't get a chance to before was I said I wanted this view to recreate the original data set. That's just a matter of using a select query. To add all columns that were from your original data set from your new tables, right? So here, if we did that, let me pull it up here. So if we did that here, right, what I would want you to do is I would want you to, from all of your tables, right? So you need it from what tables? Property, from staff, and from test. All right. Now, what were my columns originally? Let's see. I had a property number column. Well, where's property number now? Well, it's in both test and property, so I can use it from either one, right? Okay. What was another column that originally existed? IDate. Well, that's still also in test, right? What was another column? ITime, right? Okay. What's another one? P address. Now that one doesn't exist in test anymore, does it? That one's now in address. Sorry, that's now in the property table. What's another one? Comments. Comments is still in the test table. Staff number. Okay, staff number exists in both the test table and the staff table, right? Staff name. Okay, and then the car registration, that's still in the test. Okay, so now I have all the columns, but there's something, feels like there's something missing, right? Let's take a look at what happens if I run this query. Well, that's not right. All right, there's something not quite right here. Now, you might think, oh, I know what it is. I need a distinct, right? I need a distinct because there's clearly some overlapping rows or something, right? Let's see if that works. No, that's not it. We started with 5 rows and we should have 5 rows. You know what it is? Okay, let me show you what it is. Okay. The problem is that now that we have all these tables, right, what we need to do is we need to link them back together according to their foreign key, primary key combination, right? So we need to take that property table and we need to link it back to that test, right here. And one more, we also have the staff. Sorry, T dot staff number equals staff number. Okay, so I've linked them back together. Let me copy this just in case something goes wrong. There we go. Now we have our 5 rows as they were originally. Okay, so I've shown you how to write that as a select query, right? Hopefully you know how to take that and put that into a view, how to create a view from that select query. Okay, well, this has been about an hour that we've been recording this, and I think that's enough for today. I want to give you guys ample opportunity to finish your first submission for your group project so that you can get that working, get that the way that you want it to look by tomorrow evening, and you can submit it. Okay. If there are any questions, I'll stop sharing this. Okay. And let's see. Okay. If there are any questions, just email me. Okay. Or you can write on the Google Classroom, or you can write it on here on this Microsoft Teams. Okay. So that'll be it for today. And again, make sure that if you have questions related to anything for your group project, get those to me today rather than late tomorrow, because tomorrow's the due date, so there's no guarantee that I'll be able to respond to you in time. Okay. Have a good afternoon, and I will see you guys again on Thursday. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, and I will